Thank you. Good afternoon. I will call to order the October 17th meeting of the Minneapolis City Planning Commission. My name is Matt Brown. I serve as president of the commission. I'm joined today by Commissioners Magrino, Slack, Sweezy, Lupi-Pier, Vreeland, and Rockwell. This time I'll ask that you silence any mobile devices. Actually, Commissioner Kronzer is just walking in as well. I ask that you silence any mobile devices at this time, and we can get started with the meeting. Our first item of business is to approve the actions from the October 5th meeting. May I have a motion to approve those actions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? And that motion carries. Our next item of business is to approve the agenda. You can find hard copies of the agenda in the hallway. We'll determine which items will be discussed and which will be considered on consent. So starting at the top of the agenda, item 1 is the legacy at 1220 South 1st Street and 121 12th Avenue South. That is a final plat. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on that item? Seeing no one, we'll put item 1 on consent. Item 2 is a vacation in the vicinity, in the 1900 block of Lyndale Avenue South. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on that item? Seeing no one, we'll put item 2 on consent. Item 3 is the Church of St. Joan of Arc addition at 4537 3rd Avenue South. 2 variances and a site plan review for a building addition there. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on item 3? Seeing no one, we'll put that on consent. Item 4 is at 2124 Marshall Street Northeast. That's a conditional use permit for a dock. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on that item? Seeing no one, we'll put item 4 on consent. Item 5 is the lofts on East Lake at 1405 East Lake Street. That's a site plan review for a mixed-use addition there. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on item 5? Seeing no one, we'll put item 5 on consent. Item 6 is Carmel West at 312 West Lake Street. 2 variances and a site plan review for a building addition there. We'll discuss item 6. Item 7 is Rana Village at 312 West Lake Street and 2900 Pleasant Avenue. Several applications for a new residential building there. We will discuss item 7. Item 8 is the Theater Garage Marquee Apartments at 2004, 2008, 2012, 2014, and 2018 Lyndale Avenue South. Several applications for a new mixed-use building there. We will discuss item 8. And finally, item 9 is a zoning code text amendment and map amendment related to floodplain regulations. We will discuss item 9. So our agenda as amended is as follows. Items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 will be on consent, and we will discuss items 6, 7, 8, and 9. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? And that motion carries. We do not have a committee of the whole consent agenda to consider today, so we'll move on to the public hearing portion of our meeting. And at this time, I'll open the public hearing for the items on the consent agenda. That is items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Is anyone wishing to speak on any of those items? Again, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing on the consent agenda. And commissioners, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. And that motion carries. Next, we'll move on to our items for discussion, and we'll start with item 6, Carmel West at 312 West Lake Street. Staff is Mr. Hanauer. And Commissioner Kronzer, I understand you had a question about that. Maybe you could ask that, and Mr. Hanauer can focus his presentation on that.
Certainly. My question was in regards to what the proposed exterior lighting for the project is, particularly along Grand Avenue.
So Commissioner Kronzer, thanks for bringing that up. And there wasn't details on the proposed exterior lighting that would go beyond what's there today. So in talking with the applicant this afternoon, they are proposing and willing to entertain, to implement lighting that the commission would like to see, including the possibility of having shielded light packs along Grand Avenue that would help bring more light to the area. And they do realize that their light might be deficient along Grand Avenue. So the applicant's here and happy to have them provide a few more details on that lighting.
All right. Thank you. Are there any other questions of staff beyond the question about lighting? If there are none at this time, Commissioner Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we've been through this in the past, but I do get a lot of questions from constituents whenever there's an application here to talk about enforcement of, our previous regulations, including related to sort of window sight lines and I think other issues. Could you speak to that question and how that can be considered as part of this land use application?
Councilmember Bender, so the enforcement, there is the enforcement issue along the building along Lake Street. Is that the part that you're talking about, or along Grand Avenue? And
so the comment that I have is not specific enough for me to ask you a specific question, but I will say that in the past, and I have one specific email that's just sort of a general question about can we consider issues of enforcement when we're looking at a land use application like this?
Sure. Yes, I see that playing into this role, but then we did think about that and looked at the previous proposals. They did remove that addition that was built out of compliance with the site plan, and I've highlighted in this picture here the area where that new addition would be going along Lake Street, and I have the plans in there. But we were mindful of that and saw what they're proposing to do along with the conditions of approval, improving the building to a condition that will be a benefit to the area.
All right. Are there any further questions of staff? Hearing none, at this time I'll open the public hearing on this item. I'd like to ask the applicant to speak first and possibly address that question related to lighting. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Scott Nelson with DJR Architecture. And before I answer some questions specific, I'd like to officially thank Aaron Hanauer for his help on both of these applications. There are a couple of very complicated, very interrelated applications that we've been working on for better than 6 months. And it's with close cooperation with Aaron, I think we've managed to improve both projects and do something that I think will be a real plus to the neighborhood. Aaron explained to me the questions brought up about lighting shortly before noon today, and we generally address these with our kind of our final PDR, working close with the staff after we've gotten an electrical contractor involved and understand that we have to meet all the city regulations. In this case, we're all for increasing the lighting along Grand Avenue. I think the more the merrier, and we weren't quite understanding the notion of the requirements for light that's allowed on the property line, and I think we can actually allow a little bit more. So we're thinking about doing cutoff wall packs along the wall on the existing Carmel West building that will light up the sidewalk from Lake Street, or from the furniture building all the way back to where that building ends. And then also putting where the Rana Village project is, that has little yards in front of the walk-up townhouses, actually doing individual pole-mounted fixtures there that will actually light up their yards as well as the sidewalk in addition to that. All of the units have wall packs on their front doors. We'll have significantly more lighting than's there right now.
Commissioner Kranz.
On the Carmel West building, what spacing are you thinking about? What spacing for the light fixtures?
On the fronts of the buildings?
Well, on the Carmel West building along
the
Grand.
spacing, I'm going to guess they'll be roughly 30 feet.
Okay.
Because that's about the spacing of the sidewalks. We put one on every sidewalk. It'll be probably a little over 30 feet apart.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Are there any further questions of the applicant? Hearing none, is there anyone else who would like to speak on item 6? Mr. Hanauer.
I made 2 typos in the staff report, or actually in the recommendations. Going to the variance applications, I called out in B and C let's see here. So there we go. So for the variance applications on A and B, I called out Pleasant Avenue. Carmel West does not front Pleasant Avenue. It should have been Grand Avenue for both. And if you or another commissioner wouldn't mind possibly making a motion to switch those names, that would be appreciated.
Yes, we can make that correction. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on item 6? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing on item 6. And Commissioner Kronzer.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion to approve staff recommendation for variance A, reduce the front yard setback, with the edit of changing Pleasant Avenue to Grand Avenue, and it is Grand Avenue South.
We have a motion and a second to approve variance A with a correction to the street name in the language provided on the agenda from Pleasant to Grand Avenue. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Bender?
Aye.
Kronzer?
Aye.
Lipke-Pier?
Aye.
Magrino?
Aye.
Rockwell?
Aye.
Slack?
Aye.
Sweezy?
Aye.
Breland?
Aye.
So that's 8-0.
And that motion carries. Commissioner Kronzer, would you like
Yes.
to?
I'd like to propose a motion to approve staff recommendations for variance B to reduce the northern interior sides yard setback, with the same edit to recognize Grand Avenue South as the location, with the one condition.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve variance B with the same correction to the street name and the one stated condition. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Breland?
Aye.
Sweezy?
Aye.
Slack?
Aye.
Rockwell?
Aye.
Magrino?
Aye.
Lipke-Pier?
Aye.
Kronzer?
Aye.
Bender?
Aye.
8-0.
And that motion carries. Commissioner Kronzer.
Motion to approve site plan review with 7 stated conditions. 8th. Do we need a second? I'll read the proposed 8th condition. And it's just to summarize what the applicant was just discussing about lighting. 8th condition proposed is to work with staff to install building-mounted light fixtures that are full cutoff at the pedestrian scale, spaced approximately 30 to 40 feet apart, and controlled by a photocell.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve item C, the site plan review with the 7 stated conditions, as well as an 8th condition related to building mounted.
Mr. President, we were just discussing, it appears in the staff report there are 8 conditions prior to my addition. Is there in fact 7 or 8 staff recommended?
There is no number 1.
Okay, so the numbering was off. So
Okay.
So there are. Okay, so there are 7 stated conditions. We're adding an 8.
Correct.
Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Bender?
Aye.
Kronzer?
Aye.
Lipke-Pier?
Aye.
Magrino?
Aye.
Rockwell?
Aye.
Slack?
Aye.
Sweezy?
Aye.
Breland?
Aye.
8-0.
And that motion carries. And that concludes our discussion on item 6. Our next item for discussion is item 7, which is Rana Village at 312 West Lake Street and 2900 Pleasant Avenue. And Commissioner Kronzer, I understand you had a question about this one. Yeah. So similar question, Mr. Hanauer.
I think, and that's touched on by the applicant about their proposals of having additional lighting, which wasn't shown on the Grand Avenue side of the building. That being this image here, the applicant did talk about having cut-off wall packs for the walk-up units along Grand Avenue, but then now looking to propose and install some light posts for each of those walk-up units. I have a better site plan. So I believe their intentions are to have small light posts that would be in line with each of these walk-up units along Grand Avenue to help out with lighting. And just, I'm not sure if this was something else that, in terms of the lighting for the promenade that's proposed on the north end of the site, they're proposing 8 light posts, 12 feet in height, to help out with the lighting of that pedestrian walkway along the greenway. And
all right. Are there any further questions of staff on item 7?
But I
Yes.
do, with my problem with numbers, I did, with the application J, the site plan review, I requesting that you look at when things need to be completed by. It is November 18th, but looking at 2018 instead of 2016.
All right. We will make that correction in our motion. At this time, I'll open the public hearing for item 7. Commissioner Kronzer, did you have any further questions of the applicant on this one? Maybe we can ask the applicant to speak and just address that issue very briefly.
Again, members of the Planning Commission, I was actually confused in addressing both issues last time, and just to clarify with what Aaron said, we're keeping the wall packs at every one of the townhome walk-up units. In addition, we'll be putting light poles in front at each sidewalk, so you get some light at the front yard as well as along the sidewalk. So the more the merrier lighting in front of these units.
All right. Are there any further questions of the applicant? Hearing none, we can move on to some other speakers. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on item 7? If there is no one, I will close the public hearing. And commissioners, we have several applications in front of us. Commissioner Kronzer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I will move staff recommendations for the rezoning of the stated addresses.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve item A, the rezoning. Commissioner Bender.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to note a couple of things about this project. One is that it's one of many housing projects that have been built along the Midtown Greenway, and this one comes with the support of the Midtown Greenway Coalition, which has been very active in ensuring that buildings step back from the Greenway. So I wanted to note that. And also that this promenade that is slowly being built along the Midtown Greenway is also included in this project. And that's really important to folks in the community. And I think it's really great to see that each of the that we've been able to work with staff and the community in each of these project teams so far to build that continuous promenade along the Greenway, fulfilling the long desired vision of having a more pedestrian-oriented pathway to create more activation along the Greenway.
All right, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Breland.
Aye.
Sweezy.
Aye.
Slack.
Aye.
Rockwell.
Aye.
Magrino.
Aye.
Lipke-Peer.
Aye.
Kronzer.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
8-0.
And that motion carries. And perhaps we can take on a few more of those.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the conditional use permit to increase the maximum permitted building height and the conditional use permit to allow for enclosed parking.
All right. Is there a
Item
second?
B and C on the agenda.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion to approve items B and C? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Bender?
Aye.
Cronzer?
Aye.
Lipke-Pier?
Aye.
Magrino?
Aye.
Rockwell?
Aye.
Slack?
Aye.
Sweezy?
Aye.
Breland?
Aye.
8-0.
And that motion carries. Commissioner Kronzer, would you like to continue?
To approve the 6 stated variances, items D, E, F, G, H, and I.
We have a motion to approve items D, E, F, G, H, and I. Is there, that's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Can I just clarify that E is being returned and you're saying approve?
Yes, I would modify my motion to exclude item E, the variance that's been returned to the applicant.
All right. Well, that modification is noted. I think we can call the roll.
Freeland?
Aye.
Sweezy?
Aye.
Slack?
Aye.
Rockwell?
Aye.
Magrino?
Aye.
Lipke-Pier?
Aye.
Cronzer?
Aye.
Bender?
Aye.
8-0.
And that motion carries.
Motion to approve site plan review with the 6 stated conditions with the addition of a 7th, but first editing the date and item, the first condition to November 18th, 2018. And the 7th condition, very similar to the last application, work with staff to install building-mounted and post-mounted light fixtures that are full cutoff at the pedestrian scale and spaced approximately 30 to 40 feet apart and controlled by the photocell, and to install the light fixtures along the promenade as shown on the plans.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve item J, the site plan review with a correction to the first condition, replacing 2016 with 2018, also adding a 7th condition related to building and post-mounted light fixtures. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Bender?
Aye.
Cronzer?
Aye.
Lipke-Pier?
Aye.
Magrino?
Aye.
Rockwell?
Aye.
Slack?
Aye.
Sweezy?
Aye.
Freeland?
Aye.
8-0.
And that motion carries. And finally, Commissioner Kronzer, we have item K.
Propose a motion to approve item K, the minor subdivision, to add a portion of the property at 312 West Lake Street to the property at 2900 Pleasant Avenue.
We have a motion and a second to approve item K, the minor subdivision. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Bender?
Aye.
Cronzer?
Aye.
Lipke-Pier?
Aye.
Magrino?
Aye.
Rockwell?
Aye.
Slack?
Aye.
Sweezy?
Aye.
Freeland?
Aye.
8-0.
And that motion carries. That concludes our discussion on item 7. Our next item for discussion is item 8, the Theater Garage Marquee Apartments. Staff is Ms. Steiner.
Good evening, Commissioners. Before you are several applications for a new mixed-use building at 2004 through 2018 Lindale Avenue South. Background on the property, the subject property actually includes 5 different parcels at the intersection of Franklin and Lindale. The overall lot area is just under an acre. It's located in Ward 10, Lowry Hill East neighborhood. Its designated future land use is mixed use. Lindale Avenue is a commercial corridor in our comp plan, and Franklin Avenue is a community corridor. The property also falls within the boundaries of the Lynn Lake Small Area Plan. The applicant's proposal is a 6-story, 113-unit building with a little over 8,000 square feet of commercial space incorporated. There's 143 parking spaces underground, both underground and 2 levels above grade, and then there's also 6 additional spaces that are in garages on the at-grade portion. So here's just the site plan. So the site would be accessed by 2 curb cuts. There would be a large restaurant space at the corner of Franklin and Lindale. There would be 8 walk-up units along residential walk-up units along Lyndale. An additional level of parking would be accessed from Franklin, which would be at the mezzanine level, and then the residential parking would be underground. There's a small retail space between the residential and the restaurant space in the residential lobby on Lyndale as well. The land use applications that are required for this project include a rezoning. 4 of those 5 property parcels that I mentioned are zoned C1, so to rezone those parcels from C1 to C2, the conditional use permit to increase the maximum height of a building, 3 variances of 1 of floor area ratio and then 2 of setbacks, and then site plan review for the building. So going through each application, just briefly summarizing the analysis in the staff report. So the rezoning is for the 4 southerly parcels of the overall project. As I mentioned, the future land use is mixed use. We have a provision in the zoning code that prohibits split zoning, and so the combining of the parcels has to be consistent into one zoning district. So they would have to all be rezoned either C1 or C2 or a different zoning district. There's nearby C2 zoning, and then we are recommending approval of that rezoning to C2. Also, the Lynn Lake Small Area Plan also designates this property as mixed use and notes that this intersection is a gateway to Southwest Minneapolis. And so the C2 would support a diversity, more diverse uses and additional height on this corridor. The conditional use permit to increase maximum height is from 4 stories or 56 feet to 6 stories or 69 feet. Again, the property is designated mixed use. It's at the intersection of a commercial corridor and a community corridor. The majority of the building would be only 63.5 feet tall, and also the majority of the building would be set back 55 feet from residential uses. And the parking garage that's closest to the nearest residential uses would only be about 15 feet tall as perceived from that neighbor, which provides a transition to the higher height. There's a significant grade change, which you can tell in this diagram, at this intersection. So the actual elevation of the top of this building would not be taller than the building that's actually on Bryant nearby. In the application, the applicant submitted a shadow study. There's minimal shadowing impact, though there is shadowing in the early mornings of the properties to the northwest, but that shadowing decreases or is eliminated by noon. The scale and character of the surrounding area is about 1 to 4 story buildings. The nearby zoning is R6, C2, or R2. Those have by right height of either 4 or 6 stories. So we are recommending approval of that conditional use permit to increase the maximum height of the building. Next, the variance of maximum floor area ratio. The request is from 2.38 to 3.0. Again, the property is located on the intersection of a community corridor and a commercial corridor where high density residential development and mixed use development is encouraged by our plans and policies. The bulk of the building has been designed to be concentrated along those corridors and then step down towards the nearest residential uses. And like I mentioned for the conditional use permit, the significant grade changes on the site impact the perceived height and bulk of the building. So staff found that the impact of the bulk has been adequately mitigated and that the variance will not alter the essential character of the locality or be injurious to the use or enjoyment of other property in the vicinity. And the variance would also not be detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of the general public or those utilizing the property. The rear yard variance, so I've diagrammed out the variance request. So the rear yard is the western yard, which abuts residential uses. Typically, properties that are zoned commercially do not have yard requirements. However, when a commercially zoned property is directly abuts a residential use, there's a 5+2x setback. So for the 6-story building, there would be a 15-foot setback required. The applicant is proposing a 3-foot setback for the building. It actually varies from 3.2 to 3.9 along the property. Staff found that practical difficulties do exist due to difficulties accommodating the parking in the building, which meets our zoning code's dimensional standards on the narrow lot, while also providing active uses along both streets, as well as the soil conditions, which limit the amount of underground parking that is feasible on the site. Staff found that the proposal balances city policies that support increased commercial activity in this area and residential density with the need to provide off-street parking and the access to that parking. Also, the building steps back at the third level. As you can see in the bottom, so the diagram on the top is the first floor site plan, and then the diagram on the bottom is the fourth floor. So you can see that the majority of the building is stepped back over 55 feet from that western property line, and only 30 feet of the building is actually at that 3 feet for the full 6 stories of the building. So we are recommending approval, but with one condition, which is also related to a site plan review standard, that the western wall elevation of the parking garage be adequately screened as shown in the application. For the side yard variance on the south, that abuts a commercial use where there would typically not be a yard requirement. However, because the proposal incorporates residential windows, they have a 15-foot yard requirement. The applicant is putting the nearest windows 3 feet from the property line. So the setback issue is really just for the windows, not for the building or the parking garage on the first 2 floors. If those windows were eliminated, the building could be built up to their property line. However, the building to the south has access to several or a few of the spaces along their southern or their northern property line. So the applicant is choosing to build the building 3 feet from that property line. If windows were eliminated and the wall was entirely blank, that would be inconsistent with city policies. And then that other adjacent building that I mentioned doesn't have any windows that would be impacted by the residential building being 3 feet instead of 15 feet away. So staff is recommending approval of that south yard variance. And then moving on to site plan review, I'm not going to go through all the standards. I'll just note what we recommended granting alternative compliance for. And then I'll give a little more detail about the visual interest because that plays into the condition of approval. So we recommended granting alternative compliance for building placement. Along Lindale, the building elevation fluctuates between 4 and 12 feet. Staff thought that because of the overall length of the building, this was helpful to breaking up the facade. Visual interest, I'll talk about later. Windows, they were just slightly deficient on the residential portion. However, if you were to incorporate the glass doors in the residential on Lindale, they would meet. So we are recommending granting alternative compliance. And then for canopy trees, they have a 2 canopy tree requirement. They aren't incorporating any on their site, but they are incorporating 3 canopy trees in the public right-of-way. And additional shrubbery in addition are exceeding their requirement. So staff was recommending granting alternative compliance for that. So to talk more about the visual interest, so along that west elevation, and you all saw this in committee of whole as well, there's a blank wall well over 25 feet in length. The applicant is proposing to install these metal mesh features, which would have vines growing up over them, and then also plant shrubbery in between those vine mesh treatments in order to screen the property throughout the year, or screen the parking garage from the adjacent residential uses throughout the year. So staff is just recommending a condition of approval, ensuring that this is incorporated in final plans as it helps to mitigate that blank wall. And then you should have several public comments that have been received in your packets. And hopefully there are some to speak tonight as well with concerns about the height and the various other features of the proposal. Staff is recommending approval of all of the applications with the conditions of approval listed in your reports. I can stop there and take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions of staff? If there are none, at this time I'll open the public hearing for this item. I'd like to ask the applicant to speak first. Please state your name and address for the record.
Elizabeth Liebard with Master Properties at 201 West Broadway Avenue. And I just want to say that we previously submitted an application for the site in 2014 with a little bit of a different design. And we withdrew our application due to some land title issues. Since then, we've resolved the land title issues and also took the past 2 years to look at some redesigning of some of the aspects of the building. based on the comments and concerns that we got through our last application process. With our redesigned building, we presented at the Lowry Hill East Neighborhood Association, their zoning and planning meeting in August of this year, and we received positive feedback about the changes that we made. And I just wanted to bring up, I know Lisa mentioned some of the questions in the comment packet were about the mechanical system with the garage. When we applied for our land use, we didn't have that placed yet, but I've been working with our mechanical engineer and our general contractor. And I believe that we are looking at placing the exhaust of the garage ventilation to face north out onto Franklin Avenue.
All right. Thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions of the applicant? Commissioner Kronzer.
I just have a couple clarifying questions. So the space along Franklin between this proposed building and the building to the west, is that going to be sealed off with a fence of some sort, or what's the condition walking along the sidewalk on Franklin going west?
Just west of the garage entrance.
Yeah.
That will be open. I believe we're just under 4 feet off the property line. And then there's a setback, I'm not sure what it is, to the property to the west, and then there's a small one-story commercial building.
Right. So it's very similar to what happens today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And is the proposed building requiring pile driving for the foundation?
They will be using geopiers.
Geopiers. Okay. So geopiers are packed, rammed earth into the ground.
I'm not sure. Don, do you know?
So there's no actual pile driving going on, just compaction of aggregate. Okay, thank you. Let's see. All right. Oh, I want to ask a question since it is the topic of the day. Can you describe the lighting you're proposing along Franklin and Lindale? We talked about a cow and I was satisfied, so I just want to make sure the plan is still the same.
Yeah, let me just change to that page. So along Lindale Avenue and Franklin Avenue?
Yep.
Okay, so it's the lighting plan.
So besides the public lighting, we are planning on some under soffit lighting along the, at the restaurant on Franklin. So it'll be incorporated into the building. And then on Lindale, where we have the residences, we'd have some sconces.
Okay, you said public
Well,
lighting.
sconces.
Is the proposal to add pedestrian scale lights along Franklin or Lindale? You're referring to the existing street lighting?
Additional street lighting.
Is the project proposing additional street lighting?
Sorry.
It doesn't appear that way in the drawings.
Yeah, I don't know that we're proposing additional street lighting.
Not? No?
No.
And if we could, first of all, we should have everyone state their name and address for the record, and we should make sure, just so it's picked up on the recording, that we're at the microphone. If you don't mind stating your name and address.
I'm Annie Ryan with Collage Architects.
Okay, so is that lighting shown up on the plans that we have? I saw a few references to soffit or sconce lighting.
Yeah.
It is, okay.
The sconces are on the elevations, but.
Okay. So just to clarify, is there any additional lighting being installed in the public right-of-way with this project? Either additional overhead street lighting or acorn lighting per Minneapolis standards?
Yeah. So part of our proposal involves removing an existing taper of the curb at the intersection. So we'd be widening the sidewalk there to about 20 feet. And in that widened sidewalk, kind of see on the site plan a little bit that we're proposing mostly along the intersection from the commercial portion is going to be left as a majority of sidewalk. And then as you move in front of the residential walk-up units, there's space that we are proposing a boulevard for to plant trees and other landscaping and also lighting and benches.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Slack.
I have a landscaping question. The 6 lilac trees that are shown essentially at the intersection at the corner. The perspective images show, or previously it shown raised planters, and then those trees in the raised planters. I think based on the site plan now, they're not raised planters being proposed, correct?
That's correct.
I think I have some concerns, and I could also look to some of my other commissioners. I guess I'd prefer to see street trees rather than lilac trees. If they were in raised planters and they're above the ground, that would be one way to look at it. But because they are essentially more ornamental in nature and smaller in stature, I'd prefer to see street trees in those locations rather than the lilacs.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Are there any further questions of the applicant? Hearing none, we can move on to some other speakers. And just so I have a sense, how many of you would like to speak on this case? So at least a couple of you. All right. So you can decide who goes first, and please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Terry Burks, and I live at 2115 Aldrich Avenue South. And I'm also here speaking on behalf of Pearl Baker, who lives at 2019 Aldrich Avenue South, directly behind this project. She's elderly and could not make it here today. And she's also a little bit difficulties with the electronics, so she didn't get a letter to the packet either. But she is directly impacted by the project. This is what she wrote. She opposes the plan for 2 main reasons: that 6 stories are too high and do not follow the neighborhood guidelines. I will lose significant light on my property. This building is so large and so close to my property that it will create significant shadows. The western setback is too close as proposed. This is, again, where it was going from 15 feet to 3. And behind her is a parking lot because it's not all enclosed for the entire project. There are sections of it that are open and exposed. It will put my property at risk in case of fire, and it creates an unsafe dark space for vagrant activities. So she is concerned about that 3 feet of space is not really manageable space, and that's a long tract of space between the residential properties behind there on the western side of the project.